Beast Deity just suddenly got a lot better.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update. Today we've got some very interesting reveals for the upcoming extra boost to the heroic evolution for, once again, Nova Grappler. And we also got a very interesting sneak peek for that same exact booster, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. So for Nova Grappler, we once again got two new very high rarity cards revealed for them, and those are very interesting. Another support wave for Beast Deity, and that deck is shaping up to be very interesting and very powerful with these new cards, and probably we're gonna get a couple of more cards in the rares and common section. So let's jump right into these cards and see how they can interact with the first support wave for Beast Deity and maybe the old support that we already got with Risers in Q4. So first off, we've got this grade 2 Beast Deity Eclair Dragon, and its skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When placed during your main phase, if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Beast Deity in its card name, so it needs to be exactly grade 3, not higher, not lower, exactly grade 3, cost, counterblast 1, and discard a card from your hand. This unit gets power plus 3k until the end of turn and attack your opponent's Vanguard with it. If that attack did not hit, stand this unit. So once again, we get a card that can attack another card that can attack outside of the attack phase, and if it does not hit, it will restand, so you'll get effectively 2 extra attacks out of it. The difference with this card to the other cards we already seen before is that it's an on-place during the main phase timing for this one. Also, it needs to be specifically a grade 3 Beast Deity, so for premium players, it will not work with your strides, as those are grade 4s. And unlike Azure Dragon, this one will cost an extra card from hand. It does get the plus 3k, so it becomes a 12k or a 22k on an Excel marker, which means if your opponent is getting a defensive trigger, it will still hit against Protect and Excel. Sadly, not against 4, so that plus 3k will do basically nothing for that matchup. But overall, I don't think that this card will make a big impact in Beast Deity because of the fact that we already got some awesome other cards that basically do the same thing, but it will not cost a card from hand. And once again, discarding is very, very heavy for an Exo clan, and especially for Nova Grappler, which you need to get all the draws that you can have. Yes, it will generate an extra attack, but only when your opponent is sitting at 5 damage, or there is an incentive for them to not let the attack hit. So we have to wait to see if it has space in the deck for it with the current cards, as we already have Black Tortoise, and we also need Counter Charge, a Soul Charge engine, so probably Boomerang Thrower is going to be played. So we have to wait to see if this is going to make the cut or not. But it's overall a very interesting card to have to our disposal, as it's another +1 attack available to us that will allow us to conserve some more cards in hand, as since we can attack outside of the attack phase once again. Also, another thing to note about this card is that it will not work with Azure Dragon, as Azure Dragon's on ride skill is when you write a card on the Vanguard circle, you can counter +1, draw a card, then call a card and immediately attack with it. That timing is during the ride phase. You're still in your ride phase, as when attack is done and you restand it or not, then you proceed to your main phase. So if you call this card with Azure Dragon, it will not activate its skill. Also, a thing is that it attacks no matter what the condition, so meaning that if it's in the back row, it can still attack, as it's attacking through a skill and not through normal means. Also, an interesting thing that I am curious about is if you use it with Azure Dragon and you rest, it is rest because it already hit and did not restand with it. I'm curious if you can then use its skill and still attack with it, as it's an attack throughout the skill and not necessarily through the motion of attacking then resting it. So that's something I'm not sure about. So if some of you guys know about that specific ruling, let me know in the comments down below so that everybody knows about it. I at least know that it can attack from the back row with its skill. That's something that's possible. But the big one about these reveals for Nova Grappler was the new grade 3 Triple R, and that is Ultra Beast Deity Illuminar Dragon. Ironically, this is the evolution version of Azure Dragon, if you're familiar with the old era of Vanguard. This was basically the second version of that card, and seeing that this is now a Triple R instead of VR, it's for some people that might be odd. I'm personally happy that we're now getting also very good support cards for different archetypes and that aren't VR related. So decks will stay on the more cheaper side of the spectrum. But this grade 3 is very interesting, and I think the final piece for Beast Deity to make it excel in all kinds of situations. But before we go into that, let's look at the skills. First one is Auto and Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, at the end of the battle that your rearguard attacked and it does not hit, cast Counterblast 1, stand that unit, and it gains power plus 10k until the end of your turn. Attack your opponent's Vanguard with that unit. So basically, when one attack of your rearguards does not hit, you can immediately restand it, give it 10k, and immediately attack once again with it. That's pretty big, as it now allows us to have a restand extra attack with more power. So if they got a defensive trigger and it will not hit for some reason, you can give it 10k and then maybe after the final attack it will hit. So if your opponent has no cards in hand but the defensive trigger saved their ass, you can maybe circumvent that now with this skill. A bigger thing about the skill is that we finally have a restand ability from a Vanguard unit that can activate after the initial drive checks. What I mean with that is that Perfect Riser, Azura Kaiser, and even Azure Dragon all restand on moment of their attack. They restand rearguards when they specifically attack. Meaning that when you drive check a trigger, or in more particular case a crit trigger, you can then stack it onto that unit, but it will then attack for the second time. So you only have only one time value of that trigger power or that crit in particular. With this card, that's no longer the case, as you can attack first with the Vanguard, gains your triggers, give it to a rearguard, then that rearguard attacks, it does not hit, then you counter +1, restand it once again, and attack again with it. This means that running crits in Nova Grappler with this grade 3 is suddenly a very viable option, as you can now pressure them when they are already at 4 damage, or even 3 if you get double crit. As you can put them all on the rearguard, and they are forced to guard it. So you then counter +1, restand it again, give it 10k so it's even more deadly, and then it attacks once again with all those crits and your opponent is forced to guard it once again. That's a very powerful skill, and you can combine it maybe with units that has very threatening on attack effects that maybe can give power away. We have, I believe, we have a card that does that, but I think it's Refill Riser if I'm remembering it correctly. But if we get more powerful on attack effects from rearguards, that suddenly will make this card even better and better as we're progressing into the game. A very good example of what's also a very good beat stick is Maximum Riser. It's 32 on its own on an Axle Circle. Then if you get a trigger maybe, crit, it's 42. It attacks once, then you restand it, and it's a 52 attack once again. That's pretty damn big. But this card has a second skill that basically is the icing on the cake, and that's his Auto Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. Once per turn, when your auto unit's attack hits, this unit gets power plus 15k until the end of turn. So this means we have a grade 3 that can be on the Rearguard Circle as well as Vanguard Circle. So that's finally another good supporting grade 3 that also has an Axle Circle and that works in the main deck. So that's already a big plus. But this second skill works really well with the issue what Nova Grappler has. All those cards for Beast Deity are saying when an attack doesn't hit, restand. But when your opponent is still not at 5 damage, they're probably going to take that, so you're not getting that free extra attack out of them. Well, now, when this card is on the field, your opponent might need to think about it once again if they want to give a unit a plus 15k. It can give to your Vanguard, that can be big if they cannot easily perfect guard it and they need to gamble it on a trigger knot, that 15k can make it even harder. Or it can be on rearguard, that can maybe restand thanks to this Vanguard in particular that can counter +1 and restand to give it another 10k. These interactions are gonna make Beast Deity really annoying to deal with your opponent, as now they need to make a decision. Do I want to give my opponent a very strong restanding unit that can potentially have plus 25k, or do I take this, or do I guard this 9k attack, but it will come again, I need to drop another extra card. In the end, they're going to drop a lot of cards, and that's what these cards are going to make Beast Deity even more deadly. But we have still one more exciting new reveal to showcase to you guys, as I teased in the beginning of this video. So without further ado, I present to you this clip. Yes, Overlord the End has been confirmed for the extra booster, the Heroic Evolution. So this is going to be the new VR for Kagero. And oh boy, I am really excited for this, as we still have to wait what it's going to do. Probably a restand. Is it going to do with an Overlord in the soul? Does it need to have another grade 3 within the soul? Does it interact with the great or with the old Overlord? There are so many questions, and we have no answers to them, except that we can wait for that Bushroad is finally revealing the card officially, or maybe in the anime, depending when they're gonna showcase it first. But with that, we basically covered all the new reveals for Cardfight Vanguard. I'm very curious what you guys think of the new Beast Deity cards, as well as the reveal of Dragoning Overlord the End. Let me know in the comments down below about all your thoughts on all these new cards and topics. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters over at Patreon, Priest and John Edmondson, for supporting me in doing this channel. And if you too want to support me and as well getting access to exclusive Patreon content like special card reveals and deck profiles, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.